No, it's been a big deal. We've done this for 10 years and it's exhausting, and we work really hard, and we just have been to a place where we took our first vacation for the first time in 12 years. We had the time of our lives, and we felt like, okay, we can go off the farm for a minute. We can do it. And it's not always going to be perfect, and I think we're always going to worry, but I think anybody that has felt the way that we felt should do this program.
Legacy Farmer has helped me understand my own business better. I know what's going on. I can see it better versus QuickBooks. It's just QuickBooks. Because I'm tracking my finances now, I can relax a little more, spend more time with the kids, spend more time doing whatever other than sitting in the office and beating my head against the wall.
One of the hardest things, or one of the biggest challenges we had, was just through our operation, was actually determining if we were even making money or not. But Farmer Metrics, basically what it did was it allowed us to kind of deep dive into the true cash flow of the farm and the projections that kind of go from there. And then it helped us segregate out basically our real assets and kind of how they look, and it just showing that type of stuff as well.
Legacy Farmer has helped us focus, gain more clarity in our financial position, as well as our mission, our goals, and our values.
Since I've had Farmers Metrics, the tables have turned. I'm basically back in control of my operation.
That last meeting shook me. At this age, if I do the things right now, I'm not going to have the struggles at 60, 70.
The community and resources have been great, and this was what I was looking for. I feel awkward asking questions, and either do they. So it's awesome because it's farmers doing the same thing you are, and they're looking for a more efficient way to farm and make money. And also there's shared knowledge, like average interest rates across the operating loans and things like that. So like if you're being charged too much for a certain item, or you're above average or below average, or your costs are above average, and you need to work on a certain part of your business to get it closer to average and making more money.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to tonight's free training. My name is Jace Young. I'm the founder and CEO of Legacy Farmer. Excited to dive into a training with all of you here tonight around the financial red flags or warnings inside of your operation, how these warning signs can ultimately lead to your farm operation collapsing. Now, one thing you need to know about me and how I lead these trainings is, just putting it bluntly, there's no bullshit. Everything I'm talking about here are things that we've directly dealt with our customers over the past 5 or 6 years that we've worked with inside of Legacy Farmer. And I'm talking hundreds of customers from across the country and in Canada as well. So when I'm talking about these things, understand they're backed up from real life stories and things and situations that we've worked with customers going through. Now, the first topic here that we're going to talk about here is just the overall hidden collapse. So most farms today, they don't collapse in one big moment, right? They collapse slowly and quietly over years. And what I mean by that is we're going to talk about a concept here in a little bit called death by 1,000 cuts. But this is what happens to where there's just small mistakes and problems that happen inside of your operation that ultimately lead it to a place to where it's no longer existing, right? And these things happen slowly and suddenly year after year. And I'll get into talking about my background in the bank and stuff like that. But I've seen this so many times with customers over the years, simply because it's just one bad decision after another, right? And then they go refinance loans, or they refinance those losses. And it's just one small cut after another, to where eventually the farm bleeds out, and ultimately you don't have a legacy to pass on to the next generation. And this is why I'm talking about how your operation, it collapses slowly and quietly over years. And then all of a sudden, everything hits all at once. And the reason that this happens is because people are not paying attention for the warning signs, which is ultimately what I'm going to talk about tonight inside of our presentation. And this is exactly what we are going to cover. Now, we've had a lot of farmers that have come in over the years where they've been told one thing by one of their trusted advisors, but ultimately the numbers told us another thing. And so one thing I'll talk about here is a lot of farmers have come in here into Legacy Farmer over the years, and they've been told from their banker prior to joining Legacy Farmer that, hey, you're fine. everything is good, everything's solid, and things like that. But literally 3 to 6 months later, they were in a position where they were looking at bankruptcy, right? And the only reason that a lot of customers don't actually face this going forward is that they see these red flags just in time. And I cannot tell you how many customers have come into Legacy Farmer over the years where they came in literally just in time. It was literally make or break for them, and they had to make significant changes inside of their operation right now. Otherwise, they literally weren't going to be farming the next year. And they see years, decades, maybe generations of work go up in smoke just because they did not see the red flags in time, or they're trusting the advice of their banker, their accountant, or things like that. Now, most farmers today, honestly, guys, they're just in survival mode, right? They are trying to just get by year after year and just make it, honestly, to 2026. I've talked about in other videos and trainings before how 2025 is going to be a year of reckoning for a lot of family farm operations. And we're actually seeing that come to fruition, right? We continue to see more and more family farms going out of business every single year. But now in years like this, we have external factors that are really limiting and ultimately contributing to that number of family farms that are going out of business. The first part here is that banks are tightening up. And you may be wondering, why are they ultimately tightening up? Because maybe you're in a great financial position and you actually know your numbers. The reality is your loan officer has an entire loan portfolio of customers and millions of dollars that they've financed and credit they've issued to borrowers just like you. And most people today, my friends, are not in a good financial position. They have no idea where they're at financially. And the banks are getting nervous because the reality is their risk rating on their overall loan portfolio is skyrocketing in bad years like we've had in 2025. But again, though, too, 2025, it didn't just all happen at once. This is slowly and steadily happened since 2023 to 2024 to 2025. Banks refinance losses, they refinance losses, they refinance losses. And now they're getting to this year where they don't really have a game plan for customers going forward here. And this is one of the big reasons why you see banks tightening up. And we see this with all of our customers because we have access into the information of what's going on at their banks from across the country. And we see this across the board, that banks are getting nervous. They're not extending as much credit. And the credit they are extending, they're putting a much higher interest rate on it because to them, their risk that they're taking jumping into this industry and ultimately financing more loans for people like you, maybe they see it as a higher risk. And I can totally see it from their point of view. But at the end of the day, I still want to make sure that our customers and you watching this video, you're in the best position to make sure that you're getting the best rates regardless of what's going on inside of other people's operations. We still see input costs are high and ultimately impacting. We've had a lot of our customers over the past few years have to steadily increase that operating loan. And it's not because they're managing their finances poorly or losing money. It's literally because they have to spend more money in order to operate their farm on an annual basis just because of inflation and prices increasing and things like that. We also have higher interest rates than what we really want here. And again, people are having to refinance losses sitting on the operating line over the past couple of years and turn those into either 5 to 7 year or maybe 20-year loans against real estate at a much higher interest rate than what we've been accustomed to going back to like 2015 through 2020, for example. Ultimately, you compound all of these three things here, and it just gives every farmer, rancher, and ag business owner this level of stress that's ultimately unbearable for a lot of people. And this is impacting how they're operating, basically leading the business, the stories that are consuming their mind, the emotions that are driving their decisions now, and ultimately too, how they're showing up as a leader inside of their family and inside of their community and things like that. And this stress is a lot of it is just things that people don't want to talk about. They want to pretend it doesn't really exist there, but it's a massive problem inside the industry. And this is why inside a Legacy Farmer, yeah, we help people get their numbers structured and organized financially, which we'll talk about here at some point. But it's more comprehensive as well, because once you actually get things structured and fix all the business problems, then you're left with all the real problems, which is other things like your marriage or your relationships or your body and your health and how you're taking care of yourself. All these other things here, you can look at the stress for problems existing or popping up in those other areas of life that are just not the business here. And the reality is, if you're watching this training, you're most likely watching because you've been stuck here long enough and you're ready for a significant change here. And most farmers today, they're just stuck in this storm, right? And there's a massive financial storm hitting agriculture. And most farmers this year are absolutely numb to it, or they're doing something to numb that reality and make them feel like it's not actually happening. They continue to refinance. They continue to have to borrow more at higher interest rates. And ultimately, they're still waiting it out, which basically means, hey, I'm hoping and praying that things work out next year, right? And when you think about it, I feel bad for people that are stuck in that situation, because I don't want anybody that ever comes across a legacy farmer or any of our customers that we've worked with for several years now. I don't want them to be living on a strategy of hope and prayer every single year. I want them to have a detailed game plan in place and the discipline to follow through with that game plan, knowing that it doesn't matter what happens with the market, with the weather, with grain prices, or whatever in 2025. They know that they're going to be operating in 2026 and the years going forward because they have that game plan in place. And because they're so structured and organized, they're no longer worrying about, hoping and praying that things work out going forward into the future. And at the end of the day, the numbers inside of your operation, they don't lie. And everything I talk about inside today's presentation around these financial red flags here, these are going to be exposing what the numbers are actually telling you inside of your operation. But if you don't have a simple system to actually put these things together, you don't know, which is ultimately why you're watching this presentation as well right now. But this is where we get to death by 1,000 cuts. You can only refinance somebody so many times before you're at the end of your rope, right? The road has run out. You're going to go off the cliff, and there's nothing else you can do to save that operation. And I've experienced that myself as an ag loan officer, but I'll get into that here in a little bit. But at the end of the day, those death by 1,000 cuts, they can happen over a multi-year period. And we get into years like 2025, where, man, people are cut up pretty bad and they don't have much time left or opportunities left to really change the direction and really the decisions that they've been making inside of their operation. And they may end up going out of business this year. And unfortunately, that's just the hard truth of where people are at today. Now, what you're going to leave this presentation with today is a level of clarity, certainty, and ultimately actionable steps to fix things I'm talking about financial problems this week inside of your operation. And so you'll also be able to use everything I share with today. So everything I'm talking about, you're going to be able to use inside of your books. You're going to be able to use inside of your financial decisions and ultimately use in your peace of mind. And the reason I put peace of mind in here, my friends, is because we've seen this time and time again. We've worked with more than 400 family farm operations now from across the country. And I've seen it so many times where people come in, we help them get structured and organized financially, and then you just see the weight go off their shoulders. They're able to release this weight, this stress, this anxiety, all these emotions here from just not having the level of financial clarity that they want and ultimately desire to have inside of their operation. And it simply came from just getting their numbers structured and organized and, giving them some clarity that they've never had before inside of the numbers of their business, which ultimately leads them to a place of having this peace of mind inside of their operation and about their financial future that they've never experienced before, right? And a lot of people, again, they don't want to talk about that, but I know that weight that people are carrying inside of this industry, and it's a massive thing to bear, especially when you're trying to do it on your own, which is what a majority of people are trying to do. All right, so the whole reason that we exist and why we care, let me grab a drink right quick. So why do we care about this and everything there? Well, most of you watching this, you've probably seen my story before, but if you haven't, I'll share it again really quickly here. But I grew up on a multi-million-dollar family farm operation in Western Kansas, small town called Tribune. Some of you guys are going to know where that's at. It's about 15 miles from the Colorado border. And unfortunately, I witnessed the financial collapse of our entire family operation. My granddad started the operation back in the 1950s. I grew up on the feed yard side of our operation. So we had a 14,000 head feed yard. My granddad fed all of his own cattle. My dad built the feed yard his entire life. I had two uncles that ran all of the farm ground, and then I had two aunts that worked in the office. So it was a true family business. And my granddad had these deep-rooted expectations that everybody should want and feel obligated to come back to the family operation to carry on the family legacy. But unfortunately, again, I saw that entire operation go bankrupt in 2005. I was going into my junior year of high school at that time. And the sad truth is that it was 100% preventable, right? But at the end of the day, my granddad, he fed all of his own cattle. He had his own operating line of credit for that, had some major losses a couple years in a row. And ultimately, that sunk the entire family farm operation. But the painful part of this experience, though, was that I was living with my parents when they had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, when they had to move out of a house that they raised their entire family in for 30 years. And we literally lived a half mile away from the feed yard, and we could see the feed yard out the back window of our house there. My dad would sit at the kitchen table every single morning, every single night, staring at his creation because he started working on that feed yard at 5 years old. It went under when he was 45. So 40 years of his life was spent building that operation, right? And there's so many memories there for him and stuff like that. But ultimately, I had to watch them walk away from everything, right? And they had made so many sacrifices over the years to build the family operation and ultimately build the family legacy for maybe one day me to come back and take over. And it just all disappeared what seemed like overnight. But the reality was it was a slow, painful death. There was a sequence of events that happened over a multi-year period there that ultimately led the operation to going bankrupt. So Following that, I went to college, but then I spent 6 years as an ag loan officer. That was a really important part of my journey because stepping into the bank and everything, growing up, I saw all the issues and challenges that existed on the operational side, working with family, running the day-to-day operations, things like that. I witnessed all that, but also too, just the fights and resentment and things that can have when you're working with family and running the farm operation. But stepping into the bank though, now that took me full circle and I got to see things from a different point of view, looking at the finances. And actually the two banks that I worked at were banks that my granddad tried to get financing at. When it came time to where the operation was about to go under, that was kind of his last hope or last effort there to try to, extend the operation, survive a couple more years. Ultimately, that didn't happen. But I got to see in the weeds into the financial decisions that my granddad made or allowed to happen inside of the operation that ultimately contributed to that destruction. And so over that 6-year period there, I got to look at hundreds of different operations financials. I got to see the massive mistakes that people were making. And ultimately, this led me to a point to where I didn't feel like I was doing enough to solve the massive issue that was so apparent to me inside of the industry. And I left that career in 2016. At that time, my wife and I were married for about 3 or 4 years, and we had 2 babies at home. I had no game plan, but what I knew was that I wasn't going to be able to help the people in the industry like my parents from sitting in that office there. I was too limited on the things that I kids wanted to say and couldn't say ultimately, because at the end of the day, I had to protect the bank interest there as well. But I felt torn emotionally though, and internally with my core values, because man, I wanted to do what was best for the customer, not the bank on the backside. You know what I mean? So ultimately I left that career in 2016, and then I launched Legacy Farmer in 2019. And we've been trying to protect the future of ag one family farm at a time since then. And it has been a wild ride and ultimately taught me a lot of things. But one thing, guys, I've always been concerned about and focused on is I'm not interested in change, right? I'm more interested in transformation of our customers, their operations, their families, and ultimately their legacies. And the reason for this is because change is short-term, right? I can go make quick changes here or short-term changes, and they can, maybe last for a week or two, maybe a month, maybe it's 6 months. But for most people, when you're just focused on making small changes, you inevitably divert back to what is normal to you, right? Which were those normal habits that ultimately created the problem in the first place. I'm not interested in change. I'm interested in transforming the lives, the families, the operations, and ultimately the legacies of our customers there through long-lasting habit changes and giving them systems and processes that are going to change the trajectory of that family farm operation forever. And just to give you a couple, insights in here into a couple customers that we had one customer that came in 2020. Sizable operation up in Iowa. This person came in and they told us a story here of what happened after they came in. And ultimately, we helped them get structure and organization. They had millions of dollars going through their bank account every single year. We helped them find out and really understand where that money was flowing. But the way that they dealt with the stress of not knowing where they're at financially, the way that they dealt with the millions of dollars, and they ultimately knew that they were just basically flying blind and winging it and only relying on their strategy of hoping and praying that things worked out. They were drinking a bottle of whiskey every single day. And they were also about 300 to 350 pounds. So you need to understand that these issues, especially the financial ones inside of these operations, these people will do anything and everything they can to numb that pain or numb that reality, whether it's alcohol, whether it's pills, whether it's porn, whether it's whatever. People find their pathway to numbing that pain there and ultimately trying to pretend and live in a world where it doesn't exist. But the reality is they're going to have to face that truth one day or another, right? It's going to come here. And so this customer went from drinking a bottle of whiskey per day to losing over 100 pounds and getting to a point to where obviously they're not drinking a bottle a day anymore. And getting to a point to where they're sober and ultimately thriving inside of their operation. Another one saved their 4th generation family farm. The reason this is significant is because those people that are taking over a generational family farm, they feel more weight than the average farmer, right? Or than the first year farmer, because they feel the weight of the decades of work that was done by the generations before them, right? You don't only feel responsible to, your spouse and your kids at home and the people that you're responsible for directly right now. You feel responsible to all the people that came before you as well. And that's why when I say we saved another 4th generation farm operation, that's meaningful and that's impactful here. And ultimately, when the plan is right and when you know your numbers, the turnaround, it can happen extremely fast. And what I talked about here a little bit earlier on how farms don't collapse suddenly, they bleed out slowly. And this happens from bad assumptions or decisions that you're making inside the operation, not just in 1 year, but literally over years. We have people that come into Legacy Farmer, for example, that have been making poor financial decisions for 15 years. And some of them have this expectation that it can be fixed in 6 months. That's just not reality. You've been digging a hole inside your operation, having bad assumptions and poor financial decisions for more than a decade. It's going to take years to build or ultimately dig your way out of it. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. It doesn't happen fast. And we're not trying to make it happen fast. We're not interested in helping anybody take any shortcuts, because the shortcut always ends up being the longest road in the end. Ultimately, too, these bad assumptions lead to ignored numbers as well, because deep down, when people are making poor financial decisions, they know they're making poor financial decisions. They can feel it. It is in their gut. It eats away at them. It keeps them awake at night, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. because they know things are broken inside of the operation. And all these red flags that I'm going to talk about here very shortly, people can feel them. But again, they want to numb them with other things, whether it's substances, alcohol, whatever that may be there. But ultimately, they want to do everything they can to ignore those decisions and, again, lean back on hope and praying that things work out long term. That is not a strategy for long-term success and not something I'm interested in providing to our customers. And ultimately, when you do these two things, you miss the warning signs that God is trying to give you inside of your operation. Basically, these flashing red lights saying, hey, don't do this. You need to make different decisions here. People just want to ignore them and live in fantasy land. That is not what we do in Legacy Farmer. We are 100% focused on the facts and the truth and the numbers inside of your operation, because the numbers always tell us a story. They always tell us what's happened here. They tell us the types of decisions here that have been made over the past 5, 10, or 15 years. And ultimately, what led us to this point that we're at right now, to where now we're having a conversation and you need some structure and organization because you are at the breaking point inside of your operation and you need to do some things differently, and you're looking at how to do that. Now, jumping into the signs of a farm collapse here and the things that you need to be looking out for. Red flag number 1. No financial clarity. So most people come into Legacy Farmer strictly because they have zero financial clarity. And I do not care if you're a small operation doing $500,000 a year in revenue, or you're a big operation doing $15 to $20 million a year in revenue. I will never forget one customer that came in, was doing more than $20 million a year in revenue, had a balance sheet and a net worth of more than $50 million. And on our first meeting, we're going over the basics of balance sheet structure. So I say all this because it does not matter if you are doing $500,000 a year or $15 million a year. Every single farm operation, or well, not every single one, but 9 out of 10 of them, based on our numbers of working with more than 400 family farm operations, talking to several thousand on the phone, they do not know where they're at financially, and they don't know the real numbers. They always know what their operating line of credit is, but they don't know the true numbers of their overall operation, and they're not being intentional with directing that cash as it's coming through their operation as well, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. And ultimately, they're flying blind inside of the operation. And you're probably resonating with a lot of this right now, because deep down, I know the odds are stacked against you that you don't have the level of financial clarity and confidence and certainty in the overall finances inside of your operation. And again, guys, this isn't a number, this opinion that I have here. Yes, it's strong, but it's because I've seen it so many freaking times now. Like, it is so massive, the size of the problem that we have inside of this industry with people not knowing their numbers, just living and dying on the strategy of hoping and praying every single year and flying blind with multi-million-dollar operations. And the numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this long-term cost of doing things this way and not having financial clarity inside of your operation, guarantee you're going to have constant stress, which is going to impact, 1, how you operate inside of the business, 2, how you operate inside of your family, 3, how you operate with yourself and how you treat your body, the stories that consume your mind, and just how you're operating on a day-to-day basis here. And ultimately, that stress is going to lead to missed decisions or missed financial opportunities as well. And so a lot of people come in and we all, have this, disease of trying to keep up with the Joneses here when it comes to ag and farming and things like that. You're always looking at your neighbor, and a lot of people, they're wondering why Joe down the road is getting more opportunities than maybe you. Well, one of the reasons could be, there could be really 2 different scenarios here. He has a yes banker that's a collateral lender. Joe's got a big balance sheet, and the banker just loans him whatever he wants, whenever he wants it, which is a massive problem in itself. And that road is going to end at one point in time in the future, and it's going to be a very rough ending. Or 2, Joe knows where the heck he's at financially. It keeps detailed systems in place to track all of his finances and puts himself into a position to actually take advantage of these opportunities that you are not in the place or in a position to take advantage of because you're not structured, you're not organized, and you have no financial clarity into your operation. So these are all massive red flags here when it comes to trying to build the operation you want. Can't do that if you don't have financial clarity, my friend. All right, red flag number 2 is you're dependent on the banker. So many people here, and this was one of my issues here when I became a loan officer. I was 23 at the time. And we have positioned loan officers inside of this industry that they're a trusted advisor inside of your operation, and they know more about numbers and money than you do. I cannot tell you how far from the truth that actually is. So imagine me being a 23 or 24-year-old just out of college. I don't know what I don't know yet. I have hardly any experience. But all of a sudden now, just because my title is ag loan officer, I'm qualified to tell somebody how to handle a multi-million-dollar, maybe let's not even use that. Let's use $500,000 decision inside of their operation. There's no way I was qualified to be doing that. That was not even reasonable or logical. But so many people inside the industry, they trust their banker to tell them, right? They trust that their banker is getting the training, the education, and all these things on the back end of working at the bank to lead them and guide them in making these massive financial decisions there when this person is just earning a salary or a W-2 paycheck sitting behind a desk. And I'm not saying that's a bad job or anything like that. I'm just telling you as a business owner, you should not be relying on your banker to tell you the health, strengths, or weaknesses inside of your business. They should not be telling you whether or not a $500,000 purchase decision is the right thing for your operation. That is up to you as the business owner. You should be knowing this, right? But so many people, they want to look at their banker as this trusted advisor, and the bankers around this country want to say that they're true partners inside of their customers' operations. Well, if they were, they'd be signing the dotted line of the loan paperwork with them, right? But the bank's risk that they are taking inside of the operation, it's collateralized. They are protecting their interest to make sure that they get their money back, aka can sell your assets in the event that you do not pay back your loans. You are taking a significant amount more risk than what your banker is. And especially too, your banker sitting behind the desk, they're not signing on the dotted line with you. That's the bank's money. That's not their money. So why are we taking advice from these people and relying on them so heavily about the future success or failure of your operation? You have to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that really know what the heck they're talking about and have literal experience in making the decisions that you're about to make, buying $500,000 piece of equipment or buying a $2 million piece of ground or things like that as well. And these are things here, again, I go back to, me being 24 or 25 working in the bank. I was not qualified to be doing that at that time. Now, if things change, yeah, I've kind of built a business myself, had to make huge decisions, have a team of almost 20 people now. And so just where I'm at in life and business, I can guide people a little bit differently because I've been there, right? Most of the problems that people are facing, I've either experienced myself or I've worked with some of the hundreds of customers from across the country, ranging from $500K in revenue to $25 million in revenue. And I've seen all the problems, all the mistakes, all the challenges and things that they faced as well. So ultimately, your banker is not going to be accountable to your success. They signed or they gave you the loan to you. They collateralize their risk, and then they send you on your way, and they hope and pray that you make good decisions for the year. And the ultimate long-term cost of this is you are going to get blindsided. I cannot tell you how many times people have come into Legacy Farmer. We get structure and organization inside of their numbers and see that their bank lended them out way too far. They should have stopped loaning that customer money years ago, but they continued to do it. They continued to take equity or hard-earned real estate as collateral, knowing that they were going to get their money back, hoping and praying that things just turned around and worked out for the customer. And my friends, more times than not, it's just not going to happen. That miracle that your banker is wishing for, that you're wishing for, is just not going to happen. And that's why inside of Legacy Farmer, we're always focused on what is the truth in the numbers? What are the facts here? I don't care about your feelings on them. I don't care about, this happened or your excuses or anything like that. What are the facts and the numbers here? And then once we get to those foundational truths inside of your operation with your finances, now we can actually talk about what's our game plan going to be going forward. All right, moving into red flag number 3. Most farmers today, they're reacting, they're not planning. And what do I mean by that? Most farmers today, they're completely emotional when it comes to the financial decisions inside of their operation. So if you're at a place here where you've made some emotional purchases or emotional financial decisions over the past 2 or 3 years here, that is a massive red flag for you. If things are not planned out, any decision that you are making, if it has not been planned out in your cash flow projections, for example, then it is not strategic. It is 100% emotional, right? And most people today, if they're taking on more debt, for example, based on emotion, to me, my friend, that's 100% bad debt. People will justify it in the moment, but if it's not strategic and calculated and ultimately taking on good debt that's going to produce higher ROI for your business going forward, you're 100% acting in emotions. And over the years, I've seen people take on millions of dollars in emotional loans and purchases that, yes, they justify in their mind, but they don't know where they're at financially. So deep down, they're happy in the moment, but let a week pass, 2 weeks pass, and all of a sudden that pit in their stomach that they start feeling, it becomes very heavy because they know that, shit, I just made a decision and I have no idea if I'm going to be able to pay it back, right? And this is just the reality, again, that we're dealing with here. These people, when you're reacting and not planning inside of your operation, you constantly spend your days just putting out fires, right? You're running around 24/7, which also too is why you don't feel like you get anything done throughout the year, because you're just spending your day doing $10 or $15 an hour work, putting out fires for everybody. And you're not really building a sustainable business that's going to last or run without you being there 24/7. You're building a centralized operation where everything inside that business has to go through you. And I'm sorry, but you're never going to have the time or freedom that you want in your life if you are reacting or putting yourself in a position where all you can do is react and you're not planning the year ahead inside of your operation. The long-term cost here is you don't have any growth. You're just surviving year after year, which is inevitably going to lead you to burning out inside of your operation. And it's not only going to take down the operation, it's going to take down your family and you as an individual as well. All right, let me grab one more drink here. All right, my friends. So red flag number 4 is you're starting to notice cash flow gaps. And so all these decisions that were made and really that came up from red flag number 1 with no financial clarity. Number 2, dependent upon your banker. Number 3, you're reacting and not planning leads to cash flow gaps. And what I mean by that is you're not prepared for any sudden expenses or things that come up because you're not actually looking at your numbers at the level of detail that is demanded in today's ag economy. Right? You cannot get by and expect to have a successful operation today with doing 1 balance sheet per year and 1 annual cash flow per year. But that's what most people are doing. They're submitting that to their bank. They're getting their operating line of credit renewed. The banks are signing off on it, which is a whole problem in itself. And then you're not looking at the numbers again until next year. How massive of a problem is that? How do you expect to build any level of success inside of this industry if you're just looking at your numbers 1 time per year and then you're doing everything you can to avoid them the rest of the year, hoping and praying that things work out? There's some miracle that happens at some point in the future, and it's just not going to come. It's just not going to come. And we know that, again, over and over. We dealt with this with our customers coming to Legacy Farmer, where we are transforming how they run their operation to where they have a month-by-month cash flow projection, and they are looking at and updating their numbers on a monthly basis so that it stays top of mind. And I was talking about this with one of my team members earlier. It's where the average farmer will work 3,500 to 4,000 hours per year and spend less than 10 hours on their actual finances, the heartbeat of their entire operation. They will avoid the office. They will avoid the numbers because deep down, they're scared of what the numbers are actually going to expose inside of their operation. And 2, it's easier just to make excuses as to why you don't need to look at them. And I totally get it, right? And I'm not trying to talk down to anybody or anything right now, but that's why we're so focused on transforming how people act and how they operate their business so that we're not just making small changes. They look at the numbers for a week and then they don't do it again for the rest of the year. We need to transform, which is why we hold all of our customers accountable to making sure they're updating their numbers on a monthly basis minimum so that the numbers, the finances, the heartbeat of your entire business is top of mind for you every single month. And I can tell you from experience, it changes how people operate. It transforms the decisions that they're making. It transforms how they look at their business, and it transforms how they're planning about financial decisions going forward in their business into the future. They're no longer reacting now. Once you're looking at your numbers at this level of detail, this consistently, it transforms the plan that you have now going forward into your business. And you're no longer, caught blindly, not looking or paying attention, and all of a sudden have a unexpected bill or a repair expense or something like that can literally sink your operation in 1 year. I've seen that happen before as well, where people will have $100,000 or $200,000 repair expense come up. Can the line of credit afford it? Or they have to take out an additional loan now. They're going back to the bank, begging for more money. They're at complete mercy to the bank too, because now the bank's going to give them a higher interest rate on that loan because there's more risk to it because it's come from bad decisions or losses that the customer made. So yeah, rightfully so. The bank is going to take advantage of that. And I've just seen this happen time and time again, my friends. And so over time, the long-term cost of doing this, you're going to have these cash flow gaps and these issues that pop up. And it's just going to lead to poor timing on really big decisions that you need to make inside the operation, but also too, just a massive level of frustration, right? And again, these emotions here that are going to pop up for people, they're going to sink some people, right? They will consume people's mind here when these problems do come up. And these cash flow problems, guess when they happen? At the least best time during the year. Maybe it's in the middle of harvest. Maybe it's most of the time it's just in your busiest time of year there, where you don't have time, space, or mental capacity to even think through how to solve that financial problem, which goes back to you're reacting and just trying to put out a fire right quick so you can get back to doing what you need to do on a daily basis and ultimately get to the end of the year. All right. Red flag number 5 here is family confusion. So most people today, they're working inside the family operation. And when you don't have clear roles inside the operation, you have constant tension. And I experienced this definitely in big time growing up with our family farm operation, because just on the feed yard side of things, my dad was the one that oversaw and kind of led the entire feed yard team there. But on that team, we had 15 different employees that ran feed trucks, helped us process new cattle, helped us ride pins every single day and things like that. Some of those people worked with my dad for 15 to 20 years there. But the thing is that there weren't any clear roles. And ultimately, that was my granddad's responsibility to establish clear roles and responsibilities for everybody inside of the organization. But he didn't do that. He would put my dad in a position where he made my dad feel like he was in charge. But then around noon or 1 o'clock on some days, my granddad would come down and change everything, right? My dad would get everybody ready to go for the morning there and everything, kind of set up. And so people knew what they were doing for the day inside the feed yard. And then my granddad would come down and end run him and ultimately change the plan on everybody. And then nobody inside the operation knows who's responsible for what. And this is how you build a centralized operation where everybody goes up to the CEO or the business owner and everything has to run through them. Then the CEO gets pissed off. They get stressed out. They don't have the mental capacity to actually think through all these decisions here. And it inevitably every time leads to burnout for that CEO or that business owner. This is not going to put you in a position to actually build and scale an operation that you can confidently pass on to the next generation and have any level of confidence or certainty that they will be successful long term, right? And so when you're building this type of thing and this type of operation and you don't have clear roles there, especially working with family, man, you better be ready for constant collision, constant resentment, constant fights inside of that operation, because that's exactly what I witnessed growing up. But also too, I've seen this happen with hundreds of family farm operations over the years that I've worked with inside of Legacy Farmer. And when you don't have this clear roles and responsibilities game really figured out here, you can't grow the business. You're literally setting up your entire team for failure because nobody knows what their true responsibilities are. They're told to do something different every single day. And you wonder why people can't keep good employees inside of this industry. It goes back to the owner or the CEO of that company and how they're leading it, right? And are they micromanaging everybody? Because a lot of people inside this industry, that's exactly what they're doing. And ultimately, if you're in this type of situation, I can guarantee if you are having issues on the operational side here with the team, with communication, with the family inside the operation there, man, that's just the first red flag to the financials. Like if people are having issues in that side of the business, it's a guarantee. I already know for a fact that if they're that disorganized on the operational side of their business, their numbers are a disaster. They have no idea where they're at financially or anything like that. And so guys, I go back to just the importance of having structure and clarity, not only from a financial standpoint, but from an overall business operations standpoint as well. You got to have structure and clarity over there too, if you want to build and scale the operation. But the foundational thing it starts with though, is the numbers and getting that financial clarity, because that financial clarity is going to tell you what you can or can't do when it comes to building your team, hiring people, what can you pay them, how much can you afford, things like that. It's just, that's the foundational piece there that's going to give you clarity into how to run other areas of your business. And if you're having family confusion, if nobody on your team knows what the hell they're doing or what their role is or who's in charge or who they should listen to for that day, it's just a red flag warning sign there for the issues that you're facing, not only on that side of the business, because obviously it's already exposed, but into the finances as well. And ultimately, again, long-term costs, I kind of talk about this, leads to burnout, resentment, and ultimately employee turnover inside of your operation. All right, so now jumping into red flag number 6, and our final flag here, or red flag here, is you don't have a risk plan in place here. And so most people today, this is arguably, one of the top 3 most important things to have inside of your operation on top of your finances there, because you are one bad market shift away from a major disaster. And the thing is I saw this inside the bank all the time. When we had bad markets going back to 2016, 2017, people would want to come in and refinance those losses, but the losses were so massive, it actually took out several years of principal payments and equity they earned on their balance sheet. right? So when you are not protecting your risk and you don't have a plan in place here, or you don't have enough knowledge and education in the area to know what type of advisor you should be bringing in to where you know whether or not they actually know their stuff, this type of mistake here, it can set an operation back years. And I've seen this happen time and time again here. And it's such a significant issue that a lot of people today, they're just not paying attention to it, because at the end of the day, every farmer that I know, they are going to be bullish on the markets going forward. They're going to be waiting and waiting and waiting for higher prices versus our customers inside a legacy farmer. Yeah, we have target prices we want to hit, but once those prices hit, we want people to execute on them. I don't care how much higher prices could go or what, any type of market analyst is saying or whatever. If you had a plan in place to sell your crop for a certain price and it hits that price, we're executing on that, because guess what? That's building discipline. That's building confidence in your ability to have a game plan. And that's building certainty that your operation is going to be around for years going forward. The people that constantly wait and ultimately don't have a risk plan in place, they are trying to hit home runs every single year to cover those prior year losses or things that they've experienced. Just so you know, this is the exact reason our family farm operation went under and why my granddad ended up losing everything, because he tried to hit basically a one-hit wonder or a home run that year to recover ultimately from millions of dollars in losses in prior years, and it just didn't work out. And I've never seen one person that it actually worked out for. But ultimately, though, a majority of farmers, this is their strategy. They're not paying attention to these things, and you are going to get exposed massively when the market shifts. Again, it could go up, but guess what? If you don't have the discipline to pick your target prices and then execute a sale order at those prices there, you're going to lose money long-term, because you don't have any discipline to actually stick to a game plan, if you've even put a game plan together in the first place. And the long-term cost of doing this, if you don't know your numbers and then you don't have a risk plan in place to protect those numbers and those finances inside of your operation, it's going to collapse one day or another. So now, stepping into the 3 steps to regain financial control over the farm operation. One is you need to get your numbers in one place: your loans, your assets, your liabilities, everything. I go back to how many of our customers, before they came into Legacy Farmer, their office was a disaster. We asked some of them to send us a picture of their office, just papers and shit scattered everywhere, but on the floor, on the desk. And, people, maybe the wife walks in and says, "Hey, let me organize some of this for you." Husband says, "No, don't do that. Everything's exactly where I need it to be. And I know what's going on here." There's no way in hell somebody knows what's going on in that type of scenario. And I laugh at it, because it's funny, because it's true, essentially, right? People don't have a simple system to organize very important numbers inside of their operation to actually drive their decisions throughout the year. Most people, they're getting their numbers organized, their loans, their assets, their liabilities, and everything organized one time per year. And then they're not looking at it again. And most of the time when it comes to putting that information together, they're half-assing it as well, and just basically taking their balance sheet from the prior year before that their banker gave them. They're marking out some numbers. They're guessing on what their, feed inventory is or grain inventory is. They're putting down a multi-million-dollar number, initialing it, and then giving that back to their banker, and their banker's getting that approved. Blows my mind that this is actually happening inside the industry. And we've seen it time and time again. Second piece here is you need to update your numbers on a monthly basis. Do not wait until the year end. Set a consistent rhythm. Transform how you're leading the operation, not just making a small change, right? Transformation is going to be something that lasts for years into the future. Change is going to last a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month max. Number 3, make decisions based on real data. Operate from facts, not feelings. And that is the number one place that we are only focused on operating from inside a legacy farm. And a lot of people, before they come in, and I'm just speaking from a man's perspective, when a man knows that he has not put his family in the best financial position, right? And I'm speaking from this because I've been in this place before. They want to try to hide those numbers, right? They want to try to hide those facts. They want to try to avoid them, push them away, kick the can down the road as long as they can there. And the number one thing that people have to get across or get over mentally, right? They have to cross this bridge in their mind. They have to get across the points and just be okay with their financial mistakes being exposed. Because once we get the numbers structured and organized, our customers have a level of clarity that they've never had before. But also, too, all the bad decisions are exposed, right? And people have to be okay with doing that. And that's where taking 100% accountability for the results and the place that you're at inside of your operation today is required. And once you take accountability, now you're prepared to go through that journey going forward. And not every part of the journey is going to be pleasant. And that's okay. This is where growth is actually happening inside of your operation. This is where that transformation that you want for the future of your operation and how you operate as a business owner actually happens. It's only through painful painful parts of the journey that transformation can actually happen. And so this is what happens when you ultimately take control. You get the structure that you've always wanted, from business structure and organization to separating out your entities and things like that. You're having this level of organization you've never had before. Once you have structure and organization in place, now you can actually put a clear playbook into place there. And I'm talking about a game plan for what you're going to do, not just this year, but the next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. If you have no financial structure and organization, you have any idea where you're going to be at in 10 years? You don't. But I can tell you with absolute certainty, the farmers and ranchers and businesses inside of this industry that do have the level of detail and structure in their finances, their timeline is so much further out inside their business because they have this level of clarity to where they can actually see a pathway onto how they achieve these goals over the next 5-10 years. Right? Their timeline is so much further out there versus when you're operating from a place of no financial clarity and it's just an absolute mess and you have no financial structure or organization, you can't see past next week. Let's be honest. Like, you're just hoping and praying that you're able to farm next year. That is not a long-term strategy, but unfortunately, it's where a majority of farmers, ranchers, and ag business owners are sitting at today. Once you have these first three, now all of a sudden, you start to become very strategic in the decisions, because when you have this level of clarity, no decision is a quick decision. You're able to create space. It brings this calmness. It brings this peace of mind that you ultimately want to have in your life when you have this level of structure and organization inside your numbers. And I'm speaking from real life experience there for myself as well. Once I got structured and organized in my business, I could start to see a game plan going forward. I could start to see how we got to our goals for 2025 to 2027 to 2030, but also too, any opportunity that I felt like I had to, the old Jace would have said, man, I got to take advantage of this as soon as possible and not really think through it. I just push those things out now because I'm going back to my game plan. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm calculating all the potential variables that could happen that could ultimately derail that plan from being successful. And I'm just much more calm and patient with that decision. And so that neighbor down the road that I was talking about earlier, that is successful and structured and organized, the reason that you see them getting opportunities is because there's no rush there. Right? They're able to take the right ones at the right time, and they know it when a new opportunity is presented to them. They know whether or not it's the right one because they have their strategy mapped out. They have structure and clarity in their numbers, and they know whether or not they're going to be overextending themselves by taking on an additional loan to maybe buy a new piece of ground or something like that. Whereas 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 farmers, they have no idea if they're overextending themselves. Their only strategy is saying, hey, let me go check with my banker if I can buy this piece of ground. That is the absolute worst way to manage your operation. That is wrong on so many levels here. And so when you take control, these are some of the things that you're going to gain. You're going to have absolutely a lot more confidence. You're going to have a lot less stress. You're ultimately, too, going to sleep better. You combine those three things, I can almost guarantee you that you are going to feel better on a day-to-day basis. And when you're running your operation and about the future of your operation, your farm is going to gain stronger financials, strategic decision-making that it's never had before, and fewer surprises because you have the structure and organization. You're planning for these things, whether it's a potential equipment repair or something like that. You're planning for all these things. So nothing's going to derail you in the future, or that could come up in the year, derail you from your plan, right? And bring on all this emotions and stress and things like that. The emotions and stress that most people feel today are 10 times higher than what they should be because they weren't planning for them, or they're so significant that it could sink their operation that year. And now they don't know if they're going to get their operating line of credit renewed for the next year or not. So then ultimately too, your legacy gains more momentum, protection, which we desperately need in today's ag industry, and a future worth inheriting. So many people, we've asked this question, and it's a tough one for a lot of people to answer. But if I were to ask this question to you right now, based on where your operation's at today, financially, the type of lifestyle that's providing for you and things like that, would you even want your kids to come back? And that's a tough one for a lot of people, because the truth is, for most people, if they're being brutally honest they're going to say no, because they know that their kids are coming back to inherit basically financial chaos loaded with debt. That is not a future that I want to leave for my kids. That is not a future that I want any of our customers to leave for their kids. And ultimately, it's not a future that it's going to be sustainable for anybody for future generations as well. They will eventually crater, and everything you've worked to build your entire life will go up in smoke because the kids will not be able to last taking on that amount of debt. But then also too, thinking about all the compounding consequences and how that debt is going to lead into stress, emotions, how it's going to impact their marriage, their relationship with their kids, how they lead their family, all these other compounding consequences there. that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Well, guess what? We definitely talk about them inside of Legacy Farmer, and they are a common discussion for us. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, imagine leading your operation with this level of confidence and clarity that you've never had before, right? There's no more panicking. There's no more guessing, just smart strategic leadership, right? And I talked about earlier around when you have this level of structure and organization in your numbers where you extend your time frame, right? Your time horizon goes way out there, where if you're disorganized and operating in financial chaos, you can't see past this month, right? And maybe this week, definitely not this year. But when you do have that level of structure and organization, this is where that strategic leadership comes into play, because now you can actually see from proof in the numbers how you get from your goals of 2025 to 2027 to 2030 to 2035. You can actually see the roadmap of how this is going to happen. And it all starts with just having that level of financial structure and organization as the foundation in your entire business there. And ultimately, the question is that really what you want? And most people, if you're on this training right now, that's probably what you want here. Now, the whole to kind of recap here, farms collapse primarily from unclear numbers, reactive decisions. And when you don't have clear numbers, the only decisions you are making are reactive ones, and no one sounding the alarm. And ultimately today, my friend, that ends for you, right? If you choose to let it. And what I mean by that is you have a choice going forward here. You can keep doing what you've always done. You can keep relying on hoping that things will get better, right? Hoping and praying for, a miracle to happen inside of the operation, higher prices, lower interest rates, all these things here. But hope and prayer is not a strategy. We already know this. Trusting the banker knows your risk and is actually protecting your interests inside of your operation. I can tell you that's not happening. The banker is responsible and required to protect the interests of the bank. That is their primary interest. They are a for-profit institution. They will do anything and everything they can to make sure they, one, earn their interest, two, have collateral in place to make sure they can go get their money back in the event of somebody defaulting on their loans and having to file bankruptcy. And then point three here is reacting instead of leading your operation. And again, most people today, they put themselves in this position where their only option is to react. They don't even have the time, space, or capacity to actually lead and think through and be strategic with their decisions that they're making inside the business, because they don't have any financial structure, clarity, or organization with their numbers. And when you don't have that, you're flying blind. You're hoping and praying every single year. You're essentially gambling with multiple millions going through your bank account, hoping that things work out long term. And ultimately, that's not a strategy there going forward there that you obviously want to implement. So you have a choice, and you can do what hundreds of family farmers have already done coming into Legacy Farmer, taking control of your numbers, leading your operation with clarity and a strategy put into place, and ultimately protecting your farm and your legacy. This can start today for you. So my friends, one thing you need to know is we've had a lot of people come in over the years. And when I first started Legacy Farmer back in 2019, it was a struggle in the beginning. This is a brand new business for me, just like it is for every farm operation out there, every person trying to build their business. Definitely came with its challenges. But one thing that I'm really happy that we did is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our software here, and you're going to be able to sign up for a 14-day free trial and, the whole sales pitch there and everything. But one thing that we did was we built the software slowly and strategically with our customers. I didn't rush anything. And that was very intentional, because I know how farm operation, or how farmers and just people in ag really operate when it comes to using tools. And the reality is there's a lot of things that we could have added to our software that would have been things that were nice to have. But the truth is that did it really give you valuable information that actually changed and transformed the decisions that you're making inside the operation, right? And the reason I say that is because we've spent a lot of time building out our entire program, our entire process, and especially our software, millions of dollars into it. And we've always been calculated in making sure that everything that we're adding is actually adding tremendous value and clarity to our members and our customers and how they're using it to make strategic decisions inside of their operation. We want them to have this level of clarity and certainty. And that was something I was focused 110% on achieving there, to where it was simple financial clarity, simple. Right? A simple tool able for anybody to use. We have customers in Legacy Farmer, age 25, clear up to age 70, using our products, using our program, using our software there, because we kept it simple, right? And we made sure that we were providing tools that put our customers in the position where they could transform their operation, where they had ultimate financial clarity into their numbers that they've never had before. We turned customers into basically a C or D grade credit with their bank to one of the best customers that their bank has, which ultimately put our customers in a position to where they can negotiate interest rates. They're always getting the best terms. They can also go to any bank in the region, and that bank would be happy to have them because they're so structured and organized, and everything is in a simple, easy to read format. And that is what we have just focused so heavily on and building. It's taken us a long time to get here. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We've invested millions of dollars, made countless mistakes to get to this point. I don't know a business owner that's built anything great that did not go along that journey, right? Every one of us is trying to build something, essentially a legacy of sorts that we can pass on to the next generation, or that's going to give the next generation an opportunities that maybe we didn't get, right? And so when it comes to building Legacy Farmer and our software Farmer Metrics, man, we have spent literally thousands of hours and millions and millions and millions of dollars here building this thing out so that it works and it provides people, again, the simplicity, the clarity, the confidence, and the certainty in their numbers and in the future of their operation that they've never had before. And right now is your opportunity. You can sign up for a free trial to our software called Farmer Metrics. Our guarantee for that is that when you do this and you actually go through the training program inside the software and you implement and go step by step and implement everything we have in there, our guarantee is that you're going to have 100% clarity into the finances of your business and where you're really at, what the facts are in 30 days or less. That number right there was not just pulled out of thin air or anything like that. We've seen this consistently with hundreds of customers over the past 5 to 6 years. And so at the end of the day, my friend, you do not have to do this alone. We've helped hundreds of farms turn around their operation, go from a place of financial chaos and disorganization to a place of financial confidence and clarity. And the word I'm going to use here is certainty, right? Certainty in the proof and the numbers and the truth of the numbers, but also certainty in being able to put together the game plan for that operation going forward and actually seeing the pathway of how they're going to get that to ultimately leave the legacy that they want for their family going forward. This type of stuff, guys, it's hard work, but what's the cost of not doing it? For most people, operation is either going to go backwards for this generation or worse than that, go under. So you have an opportunity today to take advantage of this. It's literally 14-day free trial. You can jump in, you can get all your numbers in, put it in there. And again, my promise to you is you're going to have a level of clarity and confidence and certainty that you've never had before. So get started today. And if you have any questions following up to this, make sure you shoot our team an email. You can send that to support@legacyfarmer.com. I appreciate you joining this free training with me. I hope it was valuable. And more importantly, I hope you take action if some of these red flags were definitely noticeable for you inside of your operation right now. So thanks again for being here. Have a great evening.
Before I started using Farmers Metrics, it was just a lot of spreadsheets, guessing, math in the head. Looking back, it was actually a huge guessing game, and that's not the way you should be running a business. With the metric software, it was an eye-opener as to how inefficient I actually was. It makes everything with relationships easier if you know exactly where you are financially.
It's definitely challenging not knowing where we stood financially as far as the farm meeting our goals, and it's kind of hard to create goals when you don't even know where you're at.
We're pretty close with our loan officer, and so she knows, a lot of our situation. I had mentioned that we joined Legacy Farmer. You could see that she gained confidence in our operation by seeing those, the work that we had done.
Before Farmer Metrics, there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unknowns, and I know he missed stuff. Just not exactly sure. Is this business making me money? Is it draining me? I'm not sure. No, it's really easy to use once you understand what it's trying to ask. I find myself touching up numbers and getting as accurate as I can, and it helps me sleep at night.
Before using this software, I think there was a lot more stress within our marriage. Just having this financial weight on your shoulders and just trying to think of okay, how are we gonna do this? But now it's okay, let's get this done so we can get it into Farmer Metrics so we can continue to look at our bigger picture. Our banker came in and he did look at the software and he did not have one negative thing to say. He absolutely loved it. He's a big spreadsheet guy. He makes me a little crazy when he puts the spreadsheets together because it makes my head hurt. But he was very impressed with the software.
Farmer Metrics, basically what it did was it allows us to kind of deep dive into the true cash flow of the farm and the projections that kind of go from there. And then it helped us segregate out basically our real assets and kind of how they look, and it just showing that type of stuff as well.
With the software, I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm not very savvy when it comes to that kind of stuff. Very user friendly. That's where the QuickBooks was nice to already have it in there and just go backwards off your monthly profit and loss to get your cash flow going. Knowing my finances better has allowed me to make better decisions, quicker decisions, and more confident decisions.
If you're in a similar situation and feel like you need help, especially with your numbers and just a community, I would say join, and the sooner the better. As long as you put effort into it, you're going to get plenty of value out of it.
Do it. You will not regret it. I think it's money well spent. I think it's been great for the business. I think it's been great for our marriage. Truly and honestly, though, this really has been a full game changer. I felt like, okay, we can go off the farm for a minute. I think anybody that has felt the way that we felt should do this program.